What is up, guys? TopTierYugioh here, and today I'm here to share an updated PK Fire or Phantom Knight Burning Abyss deck profile for the April ban list and Master Rule 5. Now, originally I didn't plan on playing this deck, but a lot of you guys are asking about it on the pure Burning Abyss deck profile, so I wanted to come up with a good list and show you guys some of the amazing combos this deck can do. But before getting started, please go ahead and like this video and subscribe to the channel for more, because it really does help out a lot. But one question that a lot of you guys had in that other video was whether or not PK Fire was even still viable, and the answer is a huge yes. This deck is definitely viable, and I think there are really kind of three main versions of Burning Abyss that are really playable. You have Pure, you have PK Fire, and then you have Rock Burning Abyss, this is the best card I had to represent that. I don't have a block dragon or anything, but these are the main three variants of Burning Abyss that you can play. You have Pure, that's really consistent, but not as powerful. You have PK Fire, which is more powerful, a little less consistent. You have more normal summons, multiple engines, things can get kind of tricky, but you have some pretty cool plays. But then you have Block Dragon Burning Abyss, which is doing all sorts of things. I mean, they're summoning Skull Dread to summon Fossil Dyna, Block Dragon, all sorts of crazy things, but it really isn't that consistent at all. And so all three of these are viable. It just kind of comes down to power versus consistency, and what you decide to play really just depends on your own personal deck building philosophies and player preferences. But today I'm bringing some fire. And so starting with the monsters, we have 3 Scarm, 1 Graph, 1 Seer, and 2 Libic, which is standard for most Burning Abyss decks. Then we have 3 Farfa, 2 Alex, and then 1 Calcab, Rubik, Barbar, and Cagna. These are pretty much just extra names. They're mostly just extenders, but Barbar can come up in certain scenarios. Rubik can if you play Virgil. I don't play Virgil, but you know, sometimes it comes up. Calcab is definitely useful at times as well, but this is it for the Burning Abyss lineup. Now moving into some of the other monsters that we play, we have, of course, 2 tour guides. This is awesome in this deck. Definitely a big upgrade from the last time I played PK Fire, which was years ago, surprisingly. But this is a huge boost from the last ban list, not this most current one. So it's cool to get multiple boosts on multiple ban lists in a row. You're going to see what the other boost is coming up next, or not next, but later. After the tour guides, we have our Phantom Knight engine. We have not 1, not 2, but 3 boots, 1 gloves, and 1 cloak. So the reason I didn't play 2 cloak as a lot of other builds do, especially back in the old days, is that I didn't want to play too many normal summons. And so we already have the tour guides, which are normal summons. We have Burning Abyss monsters, which can become normal summons depending on which we have. Like Graph and Seer can usually be normal summons. Multiples of any is a normal summon. Scarm is generally a normal summon because you want to resolve that effect. And so we didn't want to play too many, especially not ones that require other Phantom Knights to go off. Like if you draw a cloak, it's not really good unless you have an extender or boots, versus some of the other Burning Abyss monsters, like those extras that we play, like Cagna. Those are better in just more hands, and you can hold them and go into Beatrice with them, which is pretty relevant. For the extenders, we play 2 Psychic Wielders, 1 Tracker, Sea Archiver, and then questionably 1 Dangerous Tsuchinoko. This is something that I was kind of unsure about. At first I was playing that and Jackalope, since both are being limited to 1. They're still great extenders, but I didn't want to play Jackalope because you could potentially mill Tsuchinoko or draw it afterwards and then your Jackalope doesn't do anything. Well, unless you get lucky, where Tsuchinoko is guaranteed going to be a summon, so I kept that one in. But it's just kind of weird when it could also just be another Psychic Tracker, or maybe emergency teleport to get to a Psychic Wielder, or Tracker. Yeah, you can summon either one. And Sea Archiver is just amazing. Sea Archiver is a great card. You can summon it from the hand or the graveyard, use it for Xyz material, and then it kind of keeps going back to the graveyard to keep using. It's a Leviair target if you do let it get banished. It's just overall an amazing extender in this deck. And then the last 3 monsters we play are 3 Ash Blossoms. Gotta have some hand traps. And now it's the weird thing with this format being so undefined and we have so many things happening right now. It's tough to say what tech is good against other decks or what's good against the format, but Ash is just generally so good that you're gonna find ways to use it. So this is definitely a flex spot that you can change up if you see, more things that you would like to play instead, but I think Ash is a pretty safe way to go right now. Now moving into the spell cards, we have 2 Pot of Avarices, one of The other one's a proxy, obviously, but Pot of Avarice is another huge boost we got from the ban list, and I'm really debating even playing 3 of this card because it's so insanely useful and easy to get 5 monsters in the graveyard. Like, you can do it very easily. This deck is mostly monsters, and so usually Dante's effective mill 3 is going to be 3 monsters, plus the 2 or 3 that you're starting your plays with. You can easily get to 5. Now, it also fixes a big issue that Burning Abyss had before, with that being the limitation of Beatrice. Before, you really only had that one Beatrice, and then your disruption after that was kind of difficult to get into because your Burning Abyss engine didn't do much more than summoning Dante's, which, let's be real, isn't amazing in 2020. But with Pot of Avarice, we can now shuffle back our Beatrices and continue to summon them again and again while even gaining that card advantage. And so it's really important that we play this card right now, and it's key that we save them for when we do have the Beatrice. I don't think it's useful to use on your first turn generally, which is kind of why I was against playing 3 right now. It's kind of good mid to late game when you have your Beatrice in the graveyard, when you have those things you want to recycle, rather than just like the random stuff you mill. So I didn't think 3 was necessary right now, but it's definitely up there. And so there's something I'll be testing and seeing in the future. But aside from Pot of Avarice, we also have 2 Cosmic Cyclones, which I think is a staple right now in this format. You don't want to lose to the Buster Dragon Destruction Sword, whatever that thing is called. You don't want to lose to that in a Dingirsu or, you know, any of the other ridiculous things that you can lose to that can be cleared by Cosmic Cyclone that Twin Twisters can't. But also a thing with Twin Twisters is that having to discard really hurts the ceiling. So there are a lot of plays where I think you need 3 and 4 cards in your hand, and if you're having to discard one of them, it really reduces your ability to play through things. And so while Twin can deal with more threats, if they don't have those threats, then it's better to just have monsters instead. So I think that Cosmic's a little more versatile in that case. It gets rid of things a little better instead of destroying them. So I think that's kind of the way to go right now. But next we have 1 Instant Fusion, because this is one of the few decks that can utilize Winda aside from Shadal's really. And I guess Orcus because they can protect the Wind and Girsu, but it's one of the few decks that can utilize Winda, and the Winda lock is just very difficult for so many other decks to get around. I mean, not being able to summon from your, not just from your extra deck, but more than once at all, it's a lot, especially when you have Cherubini protecting it from card effects as well. Well, its own effect protects from card effects too, but Cherubini especially. And then for the last 2 spells, we have 1 Monster Reborn and 1 Foolish Burial. Foolish Burial's essentially just another extender, and Reborn is amazing. So that is it for the spell cards. For the traps, all we play are 2 Fog Blades. I decided to go with 2 versus 3 simply because in our combo deck, we don't want to play that many reactive cards. It's better to play extenders and monsters that will help us get to these rather than having to draw them, you know, themselves. And so I felt that 2 is a good number. I never find myself wanting to draw it more. The scenarios where you want to draw it aren't really situations where you want to draw it. It's just to where your opponent has stopped you or you bricked, and then you need something to keep yourself from surviving or from dying on the next turn. And so it isn't that like you inherently need Fog Blade, is that you need to handle different scenarios, and Fog Blade is a potential answer. And so I felt that 2 is good. It's better to play more extenders like, you know, the Psychic Wheeler Tracker, Monster Borns, things like that. Foolish Burial even, that you could just dump a Boots to the graveyard and then add Fog Blade rather than having to draw the Fog Blade. So that's the theory on 2 versus 3 Fog Blades. And now before getting into the extra deck, please don't forget to like and subscribe. It definitely helps out a lot, but let's go ahead and move on to the extra deck. Starting with the Burning Abyss engine, we have Beatrice, 2 Dantes, Pilgrim, and Cherubini. I think this is pretty much standard. Same as last format. I don't think decks can really handle Dante Pilgrim too bad or too easily, which is why I think it's a good card to play, because sometimes they don't even expect you to have an out to or have anything to summon off of the Beatrice. So it forces them to either play around it or deal with Pilgrim, which is very tough to deal with. So I think that's a really good option. Something else I was considering was playing Virgil, but in the PK Fire you do kind of have Breaksword to do very similar things, and so I felt that Breaksword kind of fills that same role, but Virgil is something that you can summon very easily, especially with the Psychic Wielders being tuners. And in Master Rule 5, summoning tuners and fusion monsters is so much easier than it was before. Because before, if you even got to the situation where you would summon Pilgrim or Virgil or any, or really any non-link monster, it would be clogging the zones so that it hindered your ability to follow up on that next turn. But now because you can summon them anywhere, you can freely follow up with your tour guides, your PK plays, and just do so much more than you could before. So Master Rule 5 has been a huge boost to this deck. For the rest of the extra deck, we have IP Masquerena. This is a proxy Predaplant Verte Anaconda, which is why we play the instant fusion. Well, not the only reason why, because we can also just hard draw instant fusion, play Winda like that, and then have a pretty good board. But Anaconda makes it so we don't have to draw our 1-of to get the Winda. It makes it so that most of our hands actually can make Winda. So that's really good. For the link 3s, we have Topologic Trisbana, Unicorn. Unicorn is great to summon off IP Masquerena. Trisbana is good against slower decks, as well as locking out some extra deck reliant decks, because there is a play where you can summon Trisbana in front of the extra monster zone, and you summon a Beatrice in the other one, so your opponent's forced to summon in front of it. It's going to banish their monster and all back row, which is pretty difficult for some decks to play around. Definitely one of my most favorite combos in this deck. And then for the link 4s, we have Appaloosa, Zero Boros, and Borosword. Zero Boros is a new addition to the deck, but I think with the Phantom Knight engine, we can trigger it easier because of cards like Fog Blade. And so we can just, set up Zero Boros with our regular plays, and then have a Fog Blade in the graveyard on our opponent's turn, use it, summon a Phantom Knight, and then banish everything on the board. So that's really good in this deck. And the last couple of cards that we have are Winda, Breaksword, and Levier. These are all pretty standard, I think. And now moving on to the side deck. Now this is super dependent on how you see the meta. Again, the format is very undefined, and so this is just what I've been testing with as of now, but that is 3-dimensional barriers for Shaddolls. Shaddolls is a really tough matchup because you're going to end with extra deck monsters on the board. They can super poly your window away really easily if you end on that. And then there's not much. It's just difficult to deal with their engine because it's so efficient. It floats a lot. It's just tough, especially if they're playing the invoked cards as well, because then they can banish your Beatrice to summon a Macabre. It's a lot. Then we have 2 Called by the Graves, because hand traps can be disruptive at times. 3 Twin Twisters for back row decks. Altergeist has been huge on Dueling Book, so I definitely want to have outs for that. Other outs include Red Reboot, Evenly Matched, and the last 3 are Dark. Oh, there's a Dark Ruler here. 3 Dark Ruler No Mores. And now the things I really love about Red Reboot and Dark Ruler are that they kind of shut off your opponent from doing anything the rest of the turn. And so what you can do when you have these cards, or you can go into your regular plays, go into Zero Boros, and then just clear their board. So they can't do anything, and you clear everything. I think that's a really insane play. Every time I've done that, I've won the game. It's just hands down a blowout. I mean, by themselves, they aren't, well, by themselves, they are good, but they're not going to win you the game. You still have to clear their board. And with a card like Zero Boros, it's very easy to do that. So let's go ahead and get into some of the combos, because I don't want to make this too long. I mean, all these videos, all of my videos are long, but I don't want to make this like an hour long. Now, first of all, I just want to mention kind of the main standard Phantom Knight Burning Abyss combo, and it's where you have any 3 of your PK cards in the graveyard. You're going to be able to summon a free rank 3 or Cherubini or link 2 or whatever you want to do with those 2 monsters you get on board. And it's very simple to do. It's just like if you have any 3 of them in the graveyard, it's just possible. So if you have these 3 in the graveyard, for example, you will use Cloak to search Boots, and then Fog Blade, summon Gloves, special summon Boots. You have 2 monsters, do whatever you want with them. If it's these 3 in the graveyard, same thing. You use Cloak to search another Boots, Gloves to dump Fog Blade, summon the other one, summon the Boots. So whenever you have any 3 of your Phantom Knight cards in the graveyard, it's going to be 2 free monsters on board. And the good thing about this deck is that as you continue to grind out, you're milling with Dante, you're getting more and more in the graveyard. It's easy to set this up, and then eventually you get enough resources to OTK your opponent via a Borosword, or even a big Zero Boros happens sometimes. And so that's one of the pros about this deck versus standard Burning Abyss, to where your follow-ups are just going to be Tour Guide, well, for the most part. Whereas here, you're going to have Tour Guide plus your graveyard. So it really helps you push out more damage. And that's where kind of the higher power comes from. So that's just the standard basic combo. It's not really even like a combo, but it's something that happens all the time. But moving into the actual first combo. For this first combo, you're just going to need to be able to summon 4 monsters. It doesn't matter what monsters they are, but you have to be able to summon them. They can be Burning Abyss, they can be Phantom Knights, they can be, I mean, they're better if some of them are Phantom Knights. You can get the graveyard effects. They can be any other extenders you want, but you just have to be able to summon 4 monsters. And then for that combo, what you would do is if they're all 4 Burning Abyss, you can do it without even normal summoning, but you special summon or summon 2 monsters. With these, you're going to make Cherubini. You would activate Cherubini's effect to dump Graph to the graveyard. Gotta find it. So you would send Graph to the graveyard. That's gonna special summon Seer. You would summon 3rd monster, overlay both of them into a Dante. Now you have the choice here if you want to use Dante's effect or not. You don't really have to, but if you're trying to get a Scarm in the graveyard, it can be useful to do that. Or maybe you want to potentially hit some Phantom Knights. That could also be good, but it really depends on your hand and kind of how risky you feel like doing this. But it doesn't really matter. Then you summon the 4th monster. Then you link away Dante and the 4th monster. And you're going to link those into Anaconda. Anaconda just requires 2 monsters. It's super generic, very easy to summon. Next, you activate Seer and Dante. Dante will add back whatever you want to discard to make your Beatrice, say Calcab, and Seer will bring back Dante. And now we're going to use our other monster to make our Beatrice. Now this is where Master Rule becomes really useful, because in Master Rule 4, this isn't possible because we'd have to summon our Beatrice to the other Cherubini zone, and then we'd have nowhere to use Anaconda for to summon the Winda. But in Master Rule 5, we can summon the Beatrice anywhere. So we can summon it, in the middle here or way over here. We can summon it anywhere we want. And so now we're free to use the Anaconda effect, pay 2,000 life points, send instant fusion to the graveyard, and then that's going to summon our Winda. So we have Winda that's being protected by Cherubini. We have Anaconda, which is a monster that Cherubini points to. So if we need to protect our Cherubini, we have something easy to destroy to protect it. And then we still have Beatrice backing this all up as well. So this is a very powerful board. It's going to be difficult to deal with this, and I'd say usually you're going to win the game because of this. So that's a really powerful first combo. And now something else you could do with the same starting hand but just slightly different is, if we go back a little bit to when we had the Cherubini, the Dante, and then the other monster, we can do this a little bit differently. So Cherubini, Dante, and then again any monster. What we could also do is link these into an Appaloosa, and then same, use Dante to add back something, Seer revive Dante, and then summon a Beatrice. And so it really just depends on how you want to do things. If you're playing against Shaddolls, I would rather end on Appaloosa Beatrice, that way you're not losing the super poly. And then if you're playing against something that, let's say, Appaloosa isn't as good against, then maybe Winda is going to be a better option. Another advantage is keeping Cherubini on board, because that's going to give you a really strong follow-up. The Cherubini on your next turn is going to be able to send maybe a Phantom Knight, maybe a Farfa, a Calcab to deal with backrow. Just depending on the scenario, you have a lot of options. And so both plays are really powerful. It just depends on kind of the matchup and what that final 5th card in your hand was to determine which board you want to make. But I would say these are some of the top combos, or at least my favorites. But now let's move into another one. And this one's going to be, not 4 cards. It's a little bit easier to do, and it guarantees that you're going to have a Scarm Search and Winda on board. So for this combo, we only need 3 monsters, and once again, they can be anything. It doesn't really matter what they are. It's not super important. We just have to be able to summon them. And so for this one, it starts off exactly the same. Summon 2 of them, go into Cherubini. But now, instead of, you're still going to dump Graph to the graveyard, but instead of summoning Seer, in this combo you don't necessarily have to summon Seer. And so what we can do instead is summon a Scarm. So this is going to guarantee we're having a follow-up play on the next turn, which is something those other plays did not have unless we drew the Scarm and used it there, or milled it with the Dante. This is a way that we can guarantee our follow-up, which is very important when playing Burning Abyss. It's important to play efficiently. I'm looking for Scarm. I can't find it. Oh, there it is. So we dump Graph to the graveyard. Graph is going to summon Scarm. Next, we summon our final monster. We link both of these away into Anaconda. Anaconda can now send instant fusion to the graveyard. That's going to summon the Winda. And so you have the Winda lock on your opponent. And then on our end phase, we're going to be able to search a tour guide and have a really strong play to follow up on turn 2. So this is another really strong play that's easy to pull off. Doesn't really require too many resources. Now, something that happens even more common though is when you have a Phantom Knight card with that. And so let's do this a little bit differently, because the Phantom Knights do add to all of these plays, because you're going to be able to add a tour guide, or not a tour guide, but a fog blade on top of that. So just another example of this combo, but this time with a little bit of a different hand. So let's say you have Boots, an Extender, and then any other monster. Burning Abyss works. This is pretty likely since we play a billion Burning Abyss monsters. But you could go through it like this. So you could summon your Boots, special summon your Extender. Same thing as usual, go into the Cherubini. Cherubini can dump the Graph. Graph is going to get you a Scarm. Summon your Extender. And now before we could have just gone into the Anaconda, summoned the Winda, and that would be it. But now because we have a Phantom Knight card, what we can do instead is use the Boots effect to banish itself, add a Fog Blade to our hand. Next, with these two, we can go into a Leviair the Sea Dragon, detach something, special summon the Boots back. Now we can go into the Anaconda, and then summon the Winda. And so the board is super similar to where we have, the Winda, Anaconda, Cherubini, but now we have the Fog Blade. And the big difference with having to use the Leviair this time, or not having to use it, but choosing to use the Leviair this time, is that we have Boots back in the graveyard, which sets us up for next turn. And so in the end phase, we would be searching our tour guide. And so on your next turn, you'd have some really cool plays, because you could also use Boots to search another Fog Blade, and let's say maybe your opponent sets some back row. So you could link these two away, or you could use even Cherubini to maybe dump a Calcab to bounce one back row. Link those into a Unicorn. Discard the Fog Blade, spin another back row. Use the Fog Blade to bring something back. Normal summon tour guide, and you just have so many resources just like that you're able to continue to pop off and wipe out your opponent's board and eventually go for game. And so that's one of the cool things about this deck. Leviair is going to help you get your PK cards back in the graveyard, or even get them back onto the field after you've used their effects, allowing you to make other plays. But alright guys, that's pretty much it for this deck profile, with a couple of extra combo plays I just wanted to show you guys at the end there. Now there are a few cards that I did not include in this profile, something that I would love to have your guys' opinion on, and some of those are Fiendish Rhino Warrior, Mass Change 2, Different Dimension Ground, and a small Kaiju engine potentially in the side. Well, I guess these three are all side deck options, maybe even the main deck for Mass Change, but these are all cards that I did include for various reasons. Fiendish Rhino Warrior because it's a normal summon. I didn't think it was quite super necessary, but let me know what you guys think about this card, because I do think it's still very powerful, but with the Phantom Knights, we already have kind of 5 normal summons. We have the 2 tour guides. We have Burning Abyss cards at times. I wasn't sure if this would be, too conflicting there. Because as you saw, in your combos, you need to be able to actually summon your monsters. If you can't do that, it's going to reduce the level of each of your plays. And so this is sometimes a card that will do that. It will lower the ceiling of your hands. Although it does help with consistency a little bit. Match Change Second, I think, is a really good option, because with the PK engine, it's very easy to get an extra monster on board, or sometimes you even end up with these one-of monsters. And Match Change Second is a great way to do things with those. A lot of decks can't deal with Dark Claw. It's still very powerful, and again, with Master Rule 5, we're not constricted to using it in our link zone, so we can summon them anywhere, and it's not going to hinder our follow-up plays as it would have in Master Rule 4. In Master Rule 4, sometimes we wouldn't even have a place to summon Dark Claw, and even if we did, we'd have to link it away in order to combo on the follow-up turn, which was sometimes suboptimal, but now we don't have that issue. And so I'm curious to see what you guys think about this card. Different Dimension Ground is another really interesting side card, and kind of falls in line with Dark Claw, to where it's going to be kind of destroying your opponent's graveyard, but it's not as difficult to use. You just have to draw this card. You don't have to discard. You don't need to set up for it like you do with Mass Change Second. So it's still a really good option. And then Interrupted Kaiju Slumber. which of these options I think has, well, aside from Rhino Warrior, I think has the best synergy with the deck. Because if you mill this or send it to the grave with Beatrice, it's going to guarantee your ability to deal with a threat. That's really useful. But also, the kaijus themselves, I mean, obviously are strong going second. Non-targeting, non-destruction, spell speed for removal is very good. And so that's something I've also been considering. It's also really good with Beatrice even because you can summon a big kaiju and then crash the Beatrice, get out Pilgrim Dante, and that can be really hard for opponents to deal with because then you're going to be drawing cards as well, discarding, and then still dealing with their plays because it's a quick effect. So that's something else that I was considering, and so let me know what you guys think about these 4 options. But yeah, that's about it for this deck profile. Thank you guys for watching. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, leave them down in the comment section below. Be sure to like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. But with that being said, I'll see you guys in the next video.